Whew. All right. Let me get out this seatbelt because I feel like I'm about to choke. I don't normally do this, but whew, these last few days, I just have to get something off my chest. I saw a post by a really good friend this morning, and it compromised. It summarizes everything I think that needs to be said and felt on all, I won't say all sides, but a lot of sides, because there are still people, there's still people who I think have blinders on. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm not condoning what is going on in Minneapolis and other states and things like that. However, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming because you cannot keep picking at a scab and expect it to get well. You can't keep picking at a scab and expect it not to bleed. And that's what we as a nation and as a society has been doing. We have been picking at this scab of racism for far too long, and allowing it to just kind of heal over or warm over, and we don't realize the damage that it's doing. And it's just one of those things that I just kind of get, indignant from. And I just got off the phone with my best friend, and she makes it through, and I shared with before, her husband tests negative for COVID, and then now to find out her father has it. And I'm telling you, for those people that sit up and keep saying or started this out that it's a hoax, or that it was, that it's not as bad as it seems, when it comes knocking at your front fucking door, then you see that this shit is real, and that it is affecting the least of us, 40% of African Americans. And then we got this stuff going on where we can sit on a person's neck and we can choke them out and kill them worse than we do a dog. It bothers me with the society and in the place that we live in. And I have 4 kids that I'm trying to raise, 2 adults and 2 at home, and still I still have to talk to them about what's going on and how to talk to them, and my 2 young men, and how to be, and how to survive. Too many times there's too many cases, and and I'm not saying anything that nobody else is saying, but at the same time, when you look at the disparity and you look at these 2 separate systems, because these systems are separate. There's one for us and there's one for them. There's one with money, and then there's one without. And I don't know what happens to the folks in between. It's just like throwing something up in the air, and you hope that it lands or falls in the correct place. And you don't have anybody to really advocate and to speak up. And now that we have people, people like Sean King and Jamel Hill, and we have people like T.I., and we have even celebrities. We have LeBron James, and we have people in our own communities, and we have people that are willing to stick their necks out. The attorneys like Lee Merritt, and the different ones that are sticking their necks out and trying to advocate and fight for the justice of Black and brown people. And it's just not, guys, we need to wake up, because the media, we paint, or we only see in black and white. But guys, there are some gray areas in there as well. I watched a video last night where these cops whooped this white college student's ass and never apologized for it. And he's walking around with 3 felonies for a crime he didn't even commit, because now these police departments and stuff are asking, people, Killeen does it too, asking rangers to come in, or some communities have FBI come in, and they walking around looking like everyday citizens. And they clearly had a picture side by side that this kid that was wanted looked nothing like this kid. But they walked up and stripped him down, took his wallet as if they were mugging him to determine who he was instead of just asking him. So guys, it is happening, and it's not like we're not making this stuff up. We couldn't make this stuff up. You know, and as a mother of sons, it's heartbreaking. It's one of those things where you have to almost, it goes beyond a spiritual thing. And I don't even know if that makes sense, but that paternal instinct, that being a mother and raising black children, and not just black children, especially black men. You know, I never forget one time when my son sat at the table, and I was so mad at him because I always teach them to speak what they have. You have what you say, and I teach them about the weight of their words and the things, how you can speak things into existence. And we were sitting at the dinner table one night, and he said, I don't even know. He said, I don't know if I'll make it past 21. And for them to have thoughts like that, and I'm like, what did you say? And he says, yeah, I got to do and live everything. He said, because I don't know if I'll make it past 21. And I'm thinking, who you are and whose child you are and where you come from, why would you even think that? And he couldn't explain it. He said, Mom, it's just the way I feel. So I'm telling you, as mothers, I don't care what background you're from. I don't care what race you are, what ethnicity. You should be outraged to see a son like George Floyd on the ground, on a curb, a dirty ass curb with the weight of a cop on him. And mind you, they didn't show the other side of their vehicle. There were other cops on top of him. And for those of you in our, you know, that work out and things like that, y'all know what a Superman is. I remember last week or so, we had to do Supermans. And I had eaten, but I hadn't eaten early enough. And my stomach was still probably a little too full for the type of workouts that we do. But I had laid down and I was doing Supermans. And I heard the trainer say, you know, if laying on your stomach is a little uncomfortable or too much pressure, she always gives us an alternative, you know, exercise to do. And I could feel that pressure. And I remember hearing the witness on the news the other night, that the voice that you heard screaming at the cops to get off of George Floyd. And George Floyd was crying out and saying that his stomach hurt. He was crying for his mother. He was crying out. He was pleading for his life and for them to get off of him. And he kept saying, my neck, my neck. The witness said that in the training that he has and things like that, he could tell that he was almost being, you know, he was reaching that point where he could die. And he said that stomach ache, that feeling that he felt in his stomach was probably his last bowel movement. And I'm just going to bring it home and just bring it, I'm just keeping it real. If I am laying on a mat and a Superman was uncomfortable to my stomach because my stomach was a little too full, can you imagine what 3 or 4 men laying on top of me would feel like? We do dogs better. And we know folks will get in a outrage over the treatment of some animals. But they don't get outraged enough when a black man is treated or done worse than a dog. And the other day I posted and said they did him like a dog, but I have to change that. It's worse than a dog. We wouldn't do a dog like that. That woman in the park the other day that called the cops on the young black man, Christopher, I forget his last name, and she was just holding that dog and that dog was just choking, and they took that dog away from her and she lost her job. Had that been a child, would they have taken that child away? You see what I'm getting at? And people were more concerned about the dog in the video than the black man who could have now lost his life had those cops shown up and she was stuck with the story that she felt threatened. Because that's the oldest trick in the book. White women been calling cops, they husbands, a lynch mob, whatever, on black men for centuries. Been calling the cops on them, telling people on them. Emmett Till died because a white woman said that he whistled at her. And then on her deathbed, a few years ago, on her deathbed, she admitted that she lied. But I'm here to tell you, if these people are not haunted by this stuff, if they're not living every day with this stuff, then they are not human. Just this morning, I woke up to a video where a white man has a Grubhub delivery guy who is black at gunpoint, asking him what he's doing there, and he's trying to deliver a meal to an apartment. And he couldn't find the apartment, so he's just walking around looking for the apartment number. He has on a Grubhub shirt and food in a bag. So I just urge people that we need to, and I'm a teacher, and I see it even in the schools, that we don't know how to talk to young people. We approach them, we already have attitudes, and I say we because I've done it sometimes too. And I try to do pretty good at giving a child a benefit of the doubt, but we don't listen to them. We don't try to hear them out because we are always at the point of accusing them of they've already done something wrong. Something must be done wrong. And I just want to tell you that young people don't really know how to speak. And I did not know this. And if you guys that were on my last Mothers for Sons roundtable talk, my son's best friend was on there. And he shared a story, and I had not heard it until that day. And I think about it often now, and it just hurts my heart. And he said, Miss Carly, he said, I never told you. He said, Isaiah and I were walking. He said, and we must have been maybe 9, 10 years old. So he said it's probably around 4th or 5th grade. And I remember they would always walk up to Liberty Hill to the basketball courts, or they would walk up to the open field, and they would meet their friends up there, and they would play basketball or football. And that day, I think it was football, because he had a football in his backpack. So they walked up, and they're walking, and I did not know until last month that a female cop, a white female cop, rolled up on them and got out of the car and asked them where they were going. She took his backpack, my son's backpack, off of his back, and she searched it. And my son's best friend said that they had water in there and they had the football in there. And he said that she gave him the backpack back, and she's like, okay, and she let him go. And he said that he and my son didn't ever talk about it again. They didn't even tell me. Either at that point they were too young to process it and maybe thought, oh, it's no big deal, or it frightened them so. Because sometimes when kids get frightened, they don't share things with us. They don't tell us things. And they know I'm kind of crazy, so maybe they were thinking, oh, my mama is probably going to make a big deal out of it. I don't know what I would have done, if I could have done anything. Probably nothing, but at the same time, maybe at that point in their age, I probably would have had that talk with them. And, and just encourage them that they handle themselves well, and that they didn't do anything, and that they weren't in trouble. But I'm telling you, in cases like these, we are sentenced in our own death. We We, hey, Miss Annette, we are sentenced in our own death. And it is sad because these young men and women don't ever have a chance to tell their side. And I'm going to address my white friends. Because I noticed that it happens in chats and stuff a lot. And I do have beautiful, wonderful, close, Black, Hispanic, white, you name it, baby. I am in there with the rest of them. I love people. And I think I'm open enough and free enough where a lot of them will come and ask me and talk about things like this and support things like this. And because they've gotten to know me and love me. But I don't ever want to come across to anybody that I am just oh, but you're different. Oh, you're not one of those Black people. Oh, yeah, I am, and I can be. But here's the point I'm trying to make, is that we need to start talking, and we need to start asking the question, because the question I know on everybody's mind is, why do we have such outcries when it's police brutality and people in authority or think they're in authority killing Blacks and Hispanics and even white people, because they're doing it, they're dying too. Why is it that there's no outcry when it's Black on Black crime? Let me explain something to you. That when you have, and everybody always wants to reference back to Chicago, there are some cities that are just as notorious as Chicago with their inner cities, and it's inner cities. When you take jobs away, when you take the quality of life away, when you take opportunity away, when you tell a Black man or a Black girl, a Black woman, that they're less than, or they can't be anything, or you bite off of this, Black folks bite off this slave mentality of not speaking life into their children and encouraging them that they can be anything. When you put people in a cage, in a project, in a neighborhood, not a community, not a park, but a neighborhood, Blacks are going to kill Blacks. Hispanics are going to kill Hispanics. White people kill white people. You kill who you are around. And when you have people or in a red lined community, like these projects are set up years ago, then you are going to have that Black on Black crime, because that's who they're surrounded with. They're policed the most. They're harassed the most. They have the least of the resources around him. Right down here, right now in Killeen, in Killeen, redlined, Rancier, Veterans Memorial. Those people don't have a grocery store. They closed the HEB out down there. They took the Lion. They took the was it IT? One day I was just down there at a hair store, and I was like, oh, I just need a carton of eggs. I walked in there, and the man said, oh, I'm sorry, man, we're going out of business. What? So crime is high here in Killeen. This city here is off the chain. But we're not hiring our teenagers. We're not hiring our young people. We don't have stuff for them to do. And if we build another freaking restaurant in this city, I am going to throw up. What do we need more restaurants for and fast food places for and paying people at minimum wage? But we have nobody to advocate. We have nobody sitting on that board. And I went to those city council meetings. We have nobody sitting there. And I'm not going to say nobody, because there's an exception of 2 that I know for sure that will vote against some stuff. And Gregory Johnson, I'm just going to shout his name out. He's leaving the school board, and I am so saddened about that. But he's going to be a justice of the peace. when the new year comes in, and I'm so proud of him. But I sat there and I watched him on those city council meetings, and he would be the only one that would vote no for some of this bullshit that they want to put here in this city. We don't have any community centers. We don't have anything for the I'm wondering, where are our youth going to go this summer? Where did they go when school was down? People are protesting and all happy they can go back to the gym and they can go to their favorite restaurant and all this stuff, but I haven't heard not one person cry out and say, what are our teenagers going to do? What are our teenagers? And some of us can have the best intentions and be the best parent. And I had to it's taken me years to say that I'm a good parent. But in 2017, my son was bored. And he got out there and he got caught up in some bullshit. And now he's incarcerated. And no, I'm not blaming it on this town, and I'm not but I'm telling you, an idle mind is the devil's playground. We have to keep our kids busy. And he had applied and applied and applied for jobs. And guess what? They called him and said he had a job weeks after he had been arrested. He had applied weeks before, and he was accepted. They just played around with the orientation, and he went out and bought his little clothes. He went out and bought his shoes. He was excited. So you have my son at 17 years old in a state penitentiary and has never worked a day in his life, never had a real job. So now it just comes back around and around. And I've had amazing supporters. I've had amazing people who loved me through this process. We spent thousands of dollars for my son's defense. And it did not matter. It did not matter it was his first time offense. It did not matter that he was only 4 months from finishing high school. It did not matter that he had never been in trouble, not even in school. It did not matter that he was just out there doing some shit, I guess, so he could fit in. It did not matter because nobody listened to his side. We got to do better. We got to do better. And you best believe that I am going to fight and advocate for my son just like any other son that I see out there struggling. And daughters too. But it seems like to me, sometimes females have a little more mentoring and a little more people to speak into their lives than men do, boys do. Because at the beginning, we teach them, oh, don't cry, don't talk about your feelings, don't show any kind of emotion, you need to be hard, you need to do this, and you need to do that. And they're not going to open up, and they're not going to come to us because they don't want to feel weak. They don't want to feel less than. But we cannot wait until they're laying on the ground, being choked out with a foot on their neck, and they are crying out for their mothers, because then it's too late. And guys, if this doesn't affect everybody, we cannot continue to call ourselves the United States of America, because there is no unity. Period. And now you got young people in Minneapolis willing to die, just like they did back when we were fighting for civil rights. And that civil rights movement, don't get it twisted, it benefited white women. It benefited those with special needs. The Civil Rights Act benefited everybody. What Martin Luther King did benefited everybody. But we seem to not think about that, or we seem to act like we don't remember that part in our history books. I'm sorry, y'all. I am not going to take up any more of your time. But I just wanted to just really just vent and just let this out, and I sat there and I was so angry the last couple of days, and you guys, I had to do something, and I designed a t-shirt, and that pissed me off this morning because Facebook talking about they can't approve my ad because my t-shirt was socially controversial. I mean, really? Come on. I just have names on a t-shirt of those that have died. And then I even went back and I ended up putting names on there of people that I couldn't remember anymore because it's happened so much. And I remember posting the other day that I was pulled over by law enforcement a few years back going through Hearn, Texas. And I thought about Miss Pearlie. Miss Pearlie was 93 years old. And the cops came to her house there in Hearn, Texas. And they shot her dead on her porch. So I put Miss Pearlie's name on there. And Facebook wants to say that, they flagged it. I think they approved it. I don't know. I hadn't been on there. If you guys see it, then fine. But they flagged it and said it was socially controversial. And I just want people to remember their names because I'm tired of the hashtags. I'm so tired of have to justify that when people die, they say, oh, well, the story, the media will spin it and say, well, he was forging a check, or they will say, well, she was known to have dated a drug dealer, and we saw him coming in and out of her house. We're always looking to justify, and our community, black and brown, are people of color, even the white community. I have a friend whose son is mental ill, and they get mixed up with police and authorities, and they are treated horrible. And we don't know how to even handle mental illness because we're not putting them in mental illness facilities anymore. They're right there in the prison system. They're not getting the treatment that they need. I mean, it's so many things that I could cover and I could talk about, because I sit there and I try to read and I try to do research, because Mothers for Sons was built on or birthed out of ignorance. I didn't even know that a 17-year-old is considered an adult in the criminal system. But they're not grown, and they're not considered an adult until 18 for other stuff, like joining the army, serving their country, getting a restriction off of their driver's license, being able to vote, being able to get married. And it's heartbreaking. It really is. And I'm at home with my daughters, one 17 and one 14. And she came downstairs last night, and she looked like she's a little teared up, and she's probably in her little chat groups with her little friends, and she goes, Mom, I'm so tired of people hashtagging or talking about ACAB. I think she said ACAB, all cops are bad, ACAB. And I said, baby, what's that? They come up with their new sling. And she says, Mom, I'm so tired of it. She says, because that starts issues too. And she's right. Not all cops are bad. But there's a few of them bad apples. I'm telling you, when you get an apple off in that fruit box you get for Christmas, if that one apple down in there goes bad, it ruins the whole bunch. And it does make them all look bad. And I have friends that are married to police officers, wonderful people. I have friends that are police. I try and go and attend a lot of the coffees and the things that the police officers have, because they are not all bad. But when they stay silent, they are complicit. And all of those cops that were on top of George Floyd's body the other day, they didn't do anything to stop it. But I'm tired of having these conversations with my daughters. Somebody mentioned today on one of our meetings that they were talking about to their kids about what movie you're going to watch, or what we're going to play, or what's on TV, or what you're chatting about. Our conversation ain't the same. It's been a few days since I went upstairs and watched a movie with my daughter. Yesterday, I didn't turn the TV on at all. And our conversations are different, and I'm tired of having them. I'm tired of having them, and I'm tired of explaining. I'm tired of explaining to my white teacher friends that the reason why the young black girl don't want to take off her hoodie is because her hair wasn't done last night. Or that she has a spot that is coming out that she's embarrassed of. I'm tired of being the one to pull the kid aside and say, you know what? Pull your damn pants up. And put yourself together. Because they don't see you like I see you. And just because pants are sagging and kids are wearing a hoodie, it doesn't make them a thug. Because guess who was wearing hoodies first when we couldn't afford hoodies? White boys. So it has to be a lesson learned for everybody. And it has to be a community. And it has to be a village. It can't be red and blue. It can't be Democrats and Republican. I remember the year I voted Republican because, hey, I like the things George Bush had to say. I thought there were things and policies that he was bringing forth. And we had just came back from overseas, and I really wanted to get involved and be civic. They don't teach that in school anymore. I wanted to be civic, and I followed Bill Clinton and the things he had done, and the way that he just began to handle things on the end, and then the scandal and the controversy. So I wanted something different. So I didn't label myself as Republican or Democrat. I'm for policy and not necessarily for party. And I remember voting. My husband and I both did, I believe, voted for Bush. And at that time, that is what appealed to us. And now I don't know. And I remember, I don't know. And I get so upset when I see people just not thinking or using their intelligence to. Social media has become, I think, a dumbing down of thought and of processes and of a way to really talk and conversate, because we don't conversate. And I'm not sure why, when COVID came along and we had to socially distance. We've been distanced for about a decade already. Our kids are too distant. I see it in their writing. I see it in their way of communicating. I see it when people in authority, like police officers, approach a young person, and how offended a person who's totally not doing anything, but in the back of their mind, they already know they're about to be accused of something. Then you see how it gets twisted and how it gets frustrating because I wasn't doing anything. But then you felt like, okay, I'm getting on the defense because I already know what's coming. but then I shouldn't be on the defense because I don't want to seem angry. But then at the same time, you know, so it's a hard thing, especially when you're approaching young people. What are you doing here? Or let me see your ID. And you can't come with any, and I'm not saying every time somebody gets stopped or pulled over that cops have to go in this long explanation of whatever, because if it's truly legit, you already know, dang, they done pulled me and I was going kind of fast. But if you're just pulled over for no reason, number one, fear and anxiety set in. Number two, if you're a person of color, you're thinking, okay, what in the world did I do? And not only that, you see them walking up and they already have their hand on their gun. You see them coming up and they're like, and not even saying, you know, hey, do you know why I pulled you over? Back there, so-and-so. Okay, all right, I can see that. Okay, license and registration, please. But now it's just, I think it starts with a conversation, seeing us, listening to us, conversating with us, getting to know us. I saw a beautiful video, and I try to find something positive, and especially before I fell asleep last night. I saw a video of this police officer. He would go into the neighborhood and the kids were playing basketball. Someone again called the cops and said they were being too loud. And again, that's how I know we don't have a village, because back in the day, and I know male on here, Jamie, we went to school together. Hey, you remember back in the day when we were out there doing stuff and the neighbors or whatever come out and say something to you because we knew our neighbors and our parents knew our neighbors, and it was okay for our neighbors to say something. Hey, y'all being too loud. Hey, I hear y'all out here cussing. You know, don't go out. Hey, I'm going to go tell your mama. But now people are afraid and they want to call the cops to police something that they're too busy to be doing, and probably frustrating when they showed up because they could be doing something else, instead of you going over to your neighbor, both of you sitting in these nice, beautiful homes, and you can't get to go know your neighbor and get to know each other's kids and stuff, and say, hey, if you ever see my kid, Johnny, out there doing something he's supposed to be doing, snatch that ass up or come and tell me. But now we want to call the cops on every little thing that we see instead of talking to our neighbors, or instead of going out there and talking to that young person. And me being a teacher, I know these kids can be straight out disrespectful. But I've learned even with me, and even approaching children of color, they'll come off disrespect, but I've noticed it's how I approach them. And this police officer went out there and he said, hey guys, come here. And they all gathered around. He said, I don't know who it was, but somebody called and said that you guys were too loud. I don't know how you can bounce a basketball soft, but if you can, just keep it down. And he says, hey, I tell you what, I'm going to play a few games with you. And he said, they're not going to come out here and tell me I'm too loud. He ended up playing a game with them, a game of pickup. He called some of his buddies, and the other police officers came. He said, I told you I was bringing backup, and they played a game of basketball, and he started doing it on a regular, that these young boys looked up to him. And guess who showed up? Shaq showed up at one of the games, and they had a free throw contest, and Shaq pulled out a wad of $100 bills, and whichever kid made a free throw shot, because he was joking how bad of a free throw shooter he was. And I'm going to end on this good note. And he was saying that any kid that shot the basketball and made it, he would give them $100. And they all walked away with $100 that day. And he left them with words with encouragement. He had them speak out an affirmation. And he just commended them. And he told them there's some things that they needed to do. And they walked away and they were just hugging on him. They were hugging on the police officers. And I think, to me, all it takes is building relationships in these communities and weeding out these bad apples, and even fellow, and I know there's a code among police officers, and I don't want to see anybody break a code or get lost or anything, but at some point, there has to be somebody speaking out and saying, man, what you're doing is not right. You're making me look bad, and I'm not losing my job, I'm not losing my position over some stuff that you're doing. And I think it starts there, that there has to be some accountability, and that we too have to be accountable for our actions and our words and our deeds, because guys, they're watching. Our kids are watching. All right, love y'all, peace out. And that was just some of the lunchtime and meeting at the fountain. And as I always say in my posts, and I haven't done it in a while, but guys, don't forget to laugh, even in the midst through all this. Don't forget to laugh, stay healthy, and wear your mask if it's just a simple courtesy and out of respect for someone else that you're around. Alrighty, peace.